Yes, hi everyone. This is Mr. Michael, counseling psychologist, and today I want just to talk about the signs of intellectual developmental disorder, in short form IDD. So, how do you know as a parent that your child has intellectual developmental disorder, IDD? The reason why I have chosen this topic is because I have seen parents who have these children who have IDD. They are stressed and they are depressed, and the reason why they are depressed and stressed is because they don't understand what that conditions entails, and they don't know how even to help the child to manage the condition and be able to achieve the developmental milestones, and or help the child at least to live an effective life here on earth. And also have seen the parents with these children who have IDD being chased away from home, and some of them being stigmatized. And also I have seen the children who have been neglected by their parents, not because their parents are bad people, but the parents do not understand, or they don't know even how to live with these people, of these children with IDD. And I know those children who are neglected, sometimes it is at a point even they commit suicide. So I want you just to listen to understand, how do you know that this child of mine has this condition, intellectual developmental condition? But before we talk about those signs, let's understand what is this intellectual developmental disorder. I want people to know that intellectual developmental disorder is a mental disorder, or is a neurodevelopmental disorder, and is a disorder with onset during developmental period. Its onset is during developmental period, meaning that inashika the children from the age of 1 to 18. That is the criteria of determining whether, one of the criteria of determining whether your child has that intellectual developmental disorder, kama ilimshika from the age of 1 to 18. That period, if it may, the child start having those conditions or those signs that I'm going to say, now we can say that this person or this child of mine has this intellectual developmental disorder, IDD. So intellectual developmental disorder, number one, it involves deficit in intellectual functioning. That's number one. It involves, first criteria to know, it involves deficit in intellectual functioning, such as reasoning, meaning that your child cannot reason effectively compared to other children of that age. Number two, under a deficit intellectual functioning, is problem solving. Your child is not able to solve some of the obvious problems compared to other children of the same age. And number three, under that, is planning. He cannot be able to plan himself or herself. He needs to be led all the time. Is somebody to help him to plan, but he cannot say, this is my time now to do A, B, C, D. Also, deficit in abstract thinking. A deficit in abstract thinking, the child is not able to think effectively. Deficit in judgment, deficit in academic learning. He cannot be able to learn effectively in terms of mathematics, issues of writing. He cannot be able to write effectively. He cannot be able to coordinate some of the concepts in class. And also, the child is suffering or has deficit in issues of learning from experience. But all these things, they have to be confirmed by both clinical assessment, whereby the child is subjected to clinical assessment, being asked some or given an interview to answer some of the questions, and also it can be confirmed by individualized standardized intelligence testing. We have those tools that are being used to test the intelligence. So if you notice those signs, it's not good already to conclude, but it's good also to take your child to a counseling psychologist or a psychiatrist for him to be tested using the clinical assessment or using the standardized individual assessment tools. We have said that it involves deficit intellectual functioning. Number 2, now B, these are intellectual developmental disability. Also, it involves deficit in adaptive functioning. It involves deficit in adaptive functioning. What is this adaptive functioning? This it involves about failure to meet developmental and social cultural standards for personal independence and social responsibility. You will see that your child is not able to meet developmental and social cultural expectations of him becoming independent and also be able to take social responsibility compared to other children of the same age. For example, at the age of 7, but your child has not been able to go to the toilet and help himself or herself to poo or to pee. That's also, it shows that your child may have intellectual developmental disability or disorder. The child under this deficit in adaptive functioning, the child is not able to communicate effectively. His speech or her speech is not effectively. It does not bring that. It does not go hand in hand with the stage that he has reached. He's not able also to subject himself or herself in social participation. When the other friends have come, you may see your child is not able to participate fully because he has some issues internally that makes him or her not to be able to take role on the social activities with other people. And also you may see your child has deficit in independent living. He cannot live for himself or herself. And also, most of the time, the child who has this IDD may have what we call gullibility issues. Gullibility issues involve that he cannot take care of himself. He cannot lead himself. Is easy to be manipulated and led by other people. He cannot stand for himself. He cannot say no most of the time, but people take advantage of him. People take forces or manipulate him because his frontal cortex has some deficit, so he cannot take decision. He cannot control some of the things, so has that issue of gullibility, of not knowing who he is, what he wants, and he's just being led by other people. So those are the criteria. Another criteria, the onset of this type of disease or intellectual and adaptive deficit is supposed to take place under developmental period, which is the age from 1 to 18 years. So when your child experiences those things, you will understand that this child has that intellectual developmental disorder. So now the general we have to understand that this type of disorder, it goes to 4 levels. We have the first level, which is mild level. We have the second level, which is moderate. We have the third level, is severe, and the profound. This is the level of the problem. When we talk about the profound is that the more intensive problem. Severe, intensive, moderate. So we have those children who have this disorder but in the mild level. We have those children who have this disorder but in the moderate level. We have those children who have this disorder but in a severe level. And we have those children who have this disorder but in a profound level. So I want to talk about the signs of this disorder in 3 domains. The signs of this disorder in 3 domains. And I want you to understand this because you are there as a parent so that you can help your child. And for you to start helping your child, you have to know what is this kind of disorder, what are some of the signs, and what can I do. So I want to talk about these signs in 3 levels. Number 1 level is conceptual domain. The children who have intellectual developmental disorder and a conceptual domain, they're experiencing difficulties in learning. That's the first sign. And a conceptual, when we talk about the conceptual, we talk about the reason, we talk about the mind. So these children, they experience difficulties in learning, they experience difficulties in writing, academic, and even to read the time. And also the issue even knowing how much they have been given, the issue of money. So they need support. They need support for them to be able to develop the skill of running, to develop the skill of writing, to develop the skill of arithmetic, to develop the skill even to understand also the time. So when it's about adults who have this type of disease, they cannot make correct decisions. They are very slow in decision making. They cannot think abstract in a good way. Abstract thinking is very low. Strategic planning also is very low. So they have deficiency in terms of reasoning, and you will see them. When you see a child, he has reached to a stage whereby he's supposed to write, but he cannot write. When you see the child has reached to a stage whereby he's supposed to learn, but he cannot learn. If you see a child has reached to a stage whereby he's supposed to know what is the time, but he cannot determine what is the time. If you see a child who has reached at a stage whereby he has to do some mathematical problem, but he cannot. If you see a child who has reached to a stage whereby, compared to other children, whereby he can know how much has been given, the issue of money, but he cannot. Now those are the conceptual signs that your child is suffering from IDD. Let's talk about the social signs. How can you know that your child is suffering from IDD using the social concepts? Number one, you will see that your child has deficiency in communication. He has deficiency in communication. He cannot communicate effectively compared from other children who are at the same age, compared to the age mates. And also you can see your child is not able to attain that social responsibility. There are some things that he's supposed to do, but he cannot do. For example, the child who has reached to the age of 7 years, but he cannot help himself to go and pee or to go and poo-poo. Or you can see that child, he cannot help himself to do even a small washing. That child may have intellectual developmental disability. And also under this social, you'll see that the child is not able to gain to a stage of independency. He cannot stand of himself. He cannot think of himself. Also, you can see this child under social domain, he has the issue of gullibility. Gullibility, it means that he's being controlled by other people, he's being led by other people. He cannot stand of his own. He cannot be able to say no to some things. He accepts everything, and people can take advantage of him or her. Another social aspect, you will know that it's very hard for him to form friendship outside the family. It's very hard for him to form friendship outside the family. That also is another social aspect. Difficulties, we have said difficulties on controlling the emotions. The issues or difficulties are noticed by the way he interacts with the other peers and that social interaction outside the family concept. And when we talk about the signs, practical signs now, practical signs with a person who has IDD or a child. If you want to know my child has IDD, these practical signs whereby the child is not able to take care of himself or herself. The self-care is, he has deficit in self-care. He cannot go to bath, he cannot wash himself. You have to push him to take bath. You have to push him to eat. You have to push him to do some of the self-care activities. So those are the signs that maybe the child you're living with has IDD. And you have to be very careful to know this, because if you will not know this, you may not be able to support your kid to be able to live well. And also, in conclusion, under the signs, you'll see that your child delays in achieving the developmental milestones, all kind of milestones. So what are some of the causes of these intellectual developmental disorder? What are some of the causes? Number one cause of this kind of disorder is genetic syndrome. transmitted from one generation to the other, your genes, the issue of genetic syndrome such as Down syndrome or fragile X syndrome. That's why it is advisable for those people who wants to get married. Before you get married to somebody, you have to understand his background. You have to understand where he's coming from, what kind of genetic disease this person has. Because if you don't know, you may marry somebody, but maybe he has those genes because he's coming from the family whereby the people have this kind of disease. So it can be transmitted genetically, caused by genetic syndrome. Number two, it can be caused by illnesses such as meningitis and whooping cough or measles. It can be caused by those illnesses. Also, it can be caused by head trauma during childhood. When somebody has head trauma, it may lead to this IDD. And during birth, also the birth complications also can make the child to develop this IDD. Exposure to toxin such as lead or mercury. When the child is born in a place whereby there are these industries which produces very harmful chemicals, and the child is exposed to these chemicals, he or she may develop that IDD. She may develop that IDD. Also, the issue of poverty, although not 100%, but also the issue of poverty also can make the child also to develop or the child to have that IDD. And also infection during pregnancy, it is a cause. Infection during pregnancy is a cause. Problem at a birth is a cause. So now, let's say that you have this child. Maybe you have this child or a friend of yours has this child. What are some of the tips that you can use to help this child to navigate the challenges and be able to live effectively? I want you to understand, remember, this child has deficiency in intellectual development. But I want you to know that if you want to help this child of yours, you have to identify his strength. Although he has intellectual deficiency, but you have to identify his strength. And when you identify his strength or her strength, maybe it's cooking, maybe it's doing something, maybe it's music, maybe it's acting. You identify that strength and you support this child to be able to master that strength and use that strength, which is going to make him to have impactful and fulfilling life. Because most of the children who have this IDD, they have been neglected, and this IDD, you can manage it. It has not. We have not yet been able to identify the complete cure of this disease, but you can manage it. It's a lifelong condition that you can manage it. So you have to identify, one strategy is that you have to identify the strength of your child and be able to support your child. And another thing, you have to ask for help. Learn to ask for help. Learn about your child's disability. I think the moment you are able to understand the child's disability, you understand this condition, you'll be able to appreciate and volunteer or be willing to support your child. Because if you don't have knowledge about this, you may run with what we call myths, and the myths sometimes they may depress you because they will not give you the results that you want, and you'll be a bit depressed, and you may find yourself neglecting your child or allowing you or making your child not to live a happy life because you don't know, not because you don't love him or her, but because you don't understand. Also, connect with other parents for social support. Connect with the other parents of who have the children with the same condition, intellectual developmental disorder. Be patient also to learn and gain skills to help your kid to be able to navigate to those challenges. Encourage independency and responsibility. Make sure don't be too much. Do not sympathize too much with your child, but encourage independence. Help the child to gain independency and responsibility. Also, educate yourself on educational services your child deserves. Also, make sure you educate yourself on educational services that your child deserves. Understand the issue of the Kenyan laws so that you can see how your child can benefit, because this intellectual developmental disorder is under category of disability. And also, the moment you gain this knowledge, you have to know that this disorder is not out of the spiritual warfare as what people have subjected it to, because that is a myth, and many people have been depressed because they have thought that this disorder is because of some spiritual things. They have gone to see for spiritual interventions, and after some time, no results. They get depressed, they get stressed, they don't know what to do. I have told these are a psychological or neurodevelopmental disorder, and it can be managed. So it's upon you to help your child to develop effectively, or to attain those milestones, to help your child to gain some of the skills that will help him to live well. I have seen many children with this type of conditions, and they are doing very well. Some they are singers, some they are DJs. There's one in the TikTok is a DJ and is doing very well. Some they are actors, some are the writers, because the parents were able to identify the strength and nurture that strength. Thank you very much. I believe you have understood what is intellectual developmental disorder, and if you have this child, please be a support pillar to him or her. Do not allow anybody to come and deceive to you that these things are you cannot manage these things, but be a support pillar to your child. If you don't have this child but other people have this child, educate them wherever you are, so that these children can be able to live well and be able to attain good things, or their objective or goals in life. Remember, if these children are not taken care well and other mental disorder come into play along this type of disorder, these children are more at risk in committing suicide. So it's upon us as parents to make sure that we accept them, we take care of them, and we support them, and we help them to live well and effectively. Thank you very much. Subscribe to this channel. I love you. We meet next time, the same place. This is Michael Mtengo, counseling psychologist.